when they rose, look what's happened to real estate prices. I mean, what have they done? I mean, when people talk about, oh, we've created all this wealth, I mean, Barry mentioned all the wealth that we've created. We really haven't created wealth. What's happened is the value of our assets are now appraising at a higher price. But prices can change over time. The NASDAQ was 5,000, then it was 1,000. The stocks were still the same stocks. The perception of the value is all that changed. So the reason that real estate prices were so elevated was supply and demand, right? Everybody wanted to buy, and nobody wanted to sell. Why would you sell a house? It just kept going up. If you needed money, just borrow against it. And everybody wanted to buy because it was your ticket to Easy Street. If you were renting, you were an idiot. You were throwing away money. You got to buy. So everybody wanted to buy, and nobody wanted to sell. So prices went up. Well, what's going to happen? All of a sudden, nobody wants to buy anymore. Who wants to buy houses when they're falling in value? That even though real estate prices were high, rising real estate prices makes real estate affordable. Because if somebody believes they're going to get paid $100,000 a year for owning a house, right, that offsets the actual cost of the mortgage, of the taxes, of the maintenance. But the minute a more realistic outlook for the future price is in the mind of the buyer, the minute he can't anticipate that windfall, all of a sudden the true cost of home ownership becomes apparent to the buyer. And he's not going to pay these prices. You know, back in the 1950s or 1960s, a guy lost his job. It wasn't a big crisis. You know, he had a stay-at-home wife. She can get a part-time job. He can get a part-time job. They had plenty of savings. They had a fixed-rate mortgage. I mean, it wasn't adjustable. They could get by. No big deal. It wasn't a crisis. Today, most people who have a home, you got two breadwinners. And even if one of them loses a job, they're done. They can't make the payments. The only reason they were able to do it before was because, okay, they borrowed some more money. They went to that ATM and extracted some equity. But all of a sudden, when you can't do that, you know, and a lot of the people who bought homes, you know, I used to laugh, all the people would be buying these adjustable rate mortgages. And they'd be asked in a survey, well, why are you buying an adjustable rate mortgage? Why don't you get a 30-year fixed? Well, I'm only going to live in a house for 2 or 3 years. Well, I would think, well, then why are they buying it? I mean, if you're going to live in a house for 2 or 3 years, just rent. Well, they were buying it because they were speculating. They said, I'm going to buy this house, it's going to go up, but I'm going to sell it in 3 years. Well, what happens when it doesn't go up? And what happens when the mortgage interest rate now resets and you can't afford it? So, you know, when pendulums swing, they don't swing way to one side and then come and stop in the middle. They go all the way the other way first. It takes a while before you find a balance. So as expensive as real estate got, right, that's how cheap it's going to get. People are going to be completely amazed at the prices that houses are going to be selling for in a few years. Amazed. Just as amazed as the people were when they saw their shares of stocks go from 200 to nothing, or practically nothing. It's the same thing. It's the same dynamic. Because you're going to have lots of sellers, you're going to have very little buyers, you're going to have a lot of foreclosures, you're going to have a lot of developers going bankrupt. But as this huge supply of houses comes back on the market from speculators who got caught, and a lot of people who are speculators are homeowners. Just because you own your home and live in it doesn't mean you're not a speculator. If you bought a house using an adjustable rate mortgage, knowing that you can't afford to make the payments when they reset, you're a speculator. If you bought a house planning on selling it in 2 or 3 or 4 years, you're a speculator. That's all you are. I mean, when prices start to fall, people think, well, the Fed will just cut interest rates and save the day with some rate cuts. It's not going to happen. Once the bubble bursts, cutting interest rates doesn't stop it. Greenspan brought interest rates all the way down to 1%. It didn't stop the NASDAQ decline. It happened anyway. And, you know, when you mention those statistics about adjustable rate mortgages, the problem is they're all concentrated in the high-priced markets. I think something like 54% of the value of mortgages in the United States is adjustable rate.
All right, last comment by Barry Asmus.
I think Peter's scenario would come true if an atomic bomb landed on either Los Angeles, Chicago, or New York. It would take that kind of an exogenous event